Welcome back to this week's episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. In this week's episode, I sit down with Lee Davies, and now Lee has got quite a resume to him. He's ex-military, he won the Tenny Fan Challenge, he's run multiple ultra marathons, and he's just done these incredible things. In this episode, I sit down with him and I ask about where he got his drive and his resilience from, how to build mental resilience, and the pressure that social media can put on us. Now, with Adventure Athletes, we've been fundraising for BigMoose, so I've committed to raise £10,000 for BigMoose. As part of this effort, I will be running a run club from Snap Fitness in Pontyclean. It's £1 donation per run. So just come along, pay £1, all of that money goes to BigMoose. So if you're in the area and you want to join a run club, get to meet other incredible people, then hop along and you're more than welcome. Just let me know in advance so then we don't leave without you. Other than that, guys, enjoy the podcast. But talking about community and everything, obviously Reese has got it with his Pegasus Slam, but then just the wider community as well. Like, how do you feel being a part of that community? Like, what does that mean to you?
So when I left, not when I left the army, but I've lost more mates to suicide from obviously the effects of war than what I did in war. And it was like 2 or 3 years after I lost my best mate that I'd seen more and more veterans, not personally close to me, but like committing suicide and stuff. And I thought, there's got to be, like, for me, fitness and activity is what we need to conquer any low mood, any doubts. So I thought, there's got to be a way where, if it's working for me, and you know yourself, when you've been out on runs, you think some mad stuff. Like, I've thought up loads of mad stuff being out on runs, but I come up when I was out on this run, it was playing on my mind that if it's working for me, like being outdoors, being active, having this mindset, there's got to be other people out there, veterans at this stage, that it will work for. So I've set up a Facebook group called Vet I Run. I play on words for veteran. And essentially it was just to promote active lifestyle and for a better well-being. That's, in the start, that picked up quite well. There was like over 2,500 people on there, all sharing like advice in the runs and how being active has made them feel better. It has died down a bit the last year or so. Partly my fault because I haven't been posting or engaging as much. But I think the whole community feel in ultra running is, unless you're in it and you've experienced it, then I don't think you'll understand. Like, it's almost comparative to like when I've been on tour with my mates in Iraq, in Afghan. The comparison to ultra running, and I know this is going to sound a bit far-fetched, the camaraderie that you experience in the ultra community. Like, I watched that Why We Run documentary.
Yeah. Amazing documentary.
By the Watt family. I watched it, was it yesterday? Yesterday or the day before. And it's so powerful. And it just highlights everything that ultra running is. It's everyone in the ultra running game, the ultra running community, is there for everyone else. Like, yeah, deep-seatedly you're in it for yourself, and you want to challenge yourself and see where your limits are and see where your breaking point is. But beyond that, you're there for everybody else and to see everybody else do well. And I think for me, the whole fact of ultra running is the fact that I love to see other people breaking their boundaries when they didn't think they could. Thinking, shit, how have I done that? that gives me massive satisfaction.
Yeah.
Just seeing like when I done the Ultimate Human Race, I was 24, Comrades Marathon. I had no clue about ultra running. I was 24. It was 2009. I was about 37, 38 miles in. In the army terms, I was fit. Like, everybody knew me as the fitness guy. I was a PTI, always in the gym, always running. I was army fit. At 36, 37 miles, these two women, mid-30s, overly sized, run past me and said to me, Jesus, love, how old are you? I said, I'm 24. Like, what the hell are you doing this young? I was like, what do you mean? And for the, because it was 56 miles, for the next 20 miles, I was in my head thinking, what the hell is going on? And that just sparked an ignition in me. And it's like, there's people out here doing ultra running that some people automatically put a negative connotation on and think, oh, they shouldn't do running, or they don't look like a runner. And that, when I see people doing ultra marathons, that's a big fuck you to society, where the stereotype of people running. Like, I've had mates, I've been on podcasts, right, with a guy that's been on a run streak for 1,700 days nearly. And typically, he doesn't look like a runner. And people call him out. It's beyond. People call him out. He's on TikTok. People call him out and say, oh, you don't look like a runner. You're too big to be a runner, blah, blah, blah. And it blows my mind. And for me, seeing people achieve things that they didn't think they could is why I love the ultra running game.
Yeah.
It's one of them things where, yeah, I get more satisfaction seeing other people do well than what I do myself, which is a bit bizarre, but I think that's why I keep coming back.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of the community, to be honest. I think that's what makes it, like you said, like, you're not going to understand unless you've been in it.
No.
Like, I've done a couple of ultras now,
Yeah.
and I've done my 50-mile barefoot walk and things like that, but I never considered myself a runner.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a runner. I
Yeah.
do, like, a bit of everything.
Yeah.
But from doing this podcast and, like, meeting, like, Grant and Nathan and that, I'm now experiencing what it's like to be part of that community.
Yeah.
And now I'm, like, doing this 496 challenge, and I'm like, I feel like I'm a runner now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not any faster.
It don't matter.
Not any better.
Yeah.
I'm not doing these events, but being part of that community. And, like, you get a sense of it at the events. Like, I did the OTT Ultra.
Yeah.
That was my first Ultra, and that was my second Ultra as well.
Yeah.
I did them 4 years apart.
Yeah.
And you see it there. You see everyone in their groups. I was just that guy, like, shying away in the corner, headphones in. And then you get to the aid stations, experience how nice those people are, despite being stood out in the freezing cold for, like...
For free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing the smiles on their faces, and they're encouraging you, and you're like, I thought you was just here to, like, give out food. And you're just having a chat with me, being really nice, looking after me. Like, they were, like, giving me their coats, hot water bottles, things like that. And I was like, you don't need to be doing this.
No.
And, like, you get the feel for it, but then I was still like, I'm not a runner, I'm not part of this community. But now I feel like I am. Yeah. So it's
and you should. I think that's a message to everyone out there, really. If you run, you're a runner. I don't care what characteristics people put it into. If you go out and you physically make the effort to go out and go for a run, you're a runner. I don't get this, oh, you have to run a certain distance in a certain speed in a certain time. This is a good time, that's a good time. No, if you are actively making a conscious effort to better yourself by going for a run, you're a runner in my eyes.
Yeah. So, sticking with that community thing then, how would you describe the community around the Pegasus Slam? Because I've had Nathan on talking about it, but I want to get someone else's sort of opinion on it.
So for me, the first Pegasus Slam, I was solely there for one reason, and I was battling with a brain condition. I got discharged. I got sent home from the army in February 2021. So a little bit of a backstory. I've had 3 facial reconstruction operations. The left side of my face is permanently dead. So when you go to a dentist and have your tooth out and have that anaesthetic, that's what's like permanent. So the constant numbness. In 2021, or back into 2020, I started experiencing like electric shocks in my face. And I got sent home from the army. I then went through a patch of, let's call it depression, in regards to the fact that I'd lost my career. I lost my career. I'd pretty much lost everything that I used to be, and I was holding on to the past. So I went through therapy, and in January I made a conscious decision to say, right, I'm going to prove to myself that I'm still capable. How can I do that? And I come across, from watching Reese's documentary, I come across this race called the Vogan, which is from Puthcall to Penarth along the coastline. Now, we as a family go down to Puthcall all the time, and when I run that race, I run it every day, and my whole intention was to prove to myself that I was still capable of being good at something. So I put everything into it, and I run the race, won it, set the course record. But what I didn't expect to find, because of all the other mainstream races that I'd done previous, because they're so commercialised, I didn't expect to find a community. And then immediately from that, I signed up to the Pegasus Slam. Now, the community for me, the Pegasus Slam, it's like Nathan said it, it's like he knew everybody by their Instagram handles. And it sort of puts you at ease when you turn up to a race and you've seen faces and people are coming up to you because they've seen you on Instagram. And they're like, oh, hi, how are you doing? And you've clocked them because you've been commenting or seeing their stuff on Instagram. And it's like you already fit in before you get there.
Yeah.
So when you turn up to a Pegasus event, then there's none of this anticipation in regards to who's going to be there or how you're going to feel, because you've already connected. And I think that interaction automatically lays the boundaries. Then when you get to a race, it's just like, oh, how are you doing? How's your training been going? Blah, blah, blah. And you start to become friends, real friends with these people. Like, I've made friends for life through the ultra community, through Pegasus. And that wouldn't have happened in a commercial race, because it's so streamlined that it doesn't allow that to happen. But everybody's supportive in the Pegasus community. Everybody wants to see everybody do well. There's a lot of banter. So yeah, I think it's the community is what stands out for Pegasus.
Yeah,
for sure.
Something that I really wanted to ask about was your Tenny Fan event, the one that you won. That was how I first found out about you, because I wanted to do the Tenny Fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wonder what who won it.
Yeah.
What's the winning time? Because I'm so competitive that I'm like, if I'm doing it, I want to win.
Yeah.
There's no evidence to show that I can win.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh yeah, I want to win. So I looked it up and I was like, 10.5 hours.
Yeah.
That is insane. It
Yeah.
takes me like an hour to get to the top.
Yeah.
Let alone like and back down and then 10 times back to back.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that.
I think innately, as human beings, we're competitive, right? Everyone. And if you're not, then I think you're just settling. Now, I don't know where the reason. In fact, it was BigMoose. So I hadn't heard about Tenavan until BigMoose had said, "Oh, Lee, I think this would be good." Now I was in the middle of the slam, and like you, I was like, right, okay. People that haven't done anything, haven't done something. Let's say people that haven't run a half marathon. Subconsciously, they put a block on it. Yeah. So, I could never do a half marathon. It's too hard. Or I could never run 10k in 40 minutes. It's too hard. That's the same with Penavan. I've spent so much of my career in the Brecon Beacons that Penavan for me was nothing. So where people have this mental block about Penavan being something difficult and challenging, it's because they've allowed them to have that block. Whereas if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So for me, Penavan was just a run. Now, how do I then go from Penavan just being a run to breaking it down in how I think I can utilise my time best? And there's a lot of strategies that people adopted for that Penavan. There were people going up and doing a summit, coming back down and having like 30 minutes rest. There were people going up, doing 5 summits and disappearing for the night in a hotel and coming back the next day, the next morning. In my head, because of my experience in ultra running, I knew if I stopped for too long, then it's game over. Just like in an ultra marathon, if you spend that little bit too much time in an aid station, your body's just going to start shutting down because it thinks it's done. So my plan was always to just go non-stop. Go up, run, like fast walk up, run where I could, and then run all the way down, eat on the way up, and run down. I think I spent 15 minutes, around about 10 minutes, something like that, at the car, just changing my socks, and taking on board a little bit of extra fuel, going to the toilet. But apart from that, I was just up and down. And I think my first summit and back down was like 43 or 44 minutes. And to some people looking in, that might seem like way outside anything they could achieve. But to, like I said, to me, Penavan was just a run. I looked at it as just a run. I didn't care the fact that it was over 400 meters elevation and something that some people, this is some people have never done Penavan. If you speak to people, some people have never walked Penavan. Why? Because they've built up this persona in their head that Penavan is hard. It's not. It's not. Nothing in life is going to be hard if you actually try. And you'll find that out when you do something hard. You get to the end of an ultramarathon and think, why have I put this massive connotation of this ultra event being so hard? You get to the finish line and you think, that wasn't that hard.
No.
So when I done it, I must have said, well done, keep going, about 4,000 times, because you're constantly passing the same people. And Grant was one of them. Every time I passed him, he was like, you're a fucking savage. And it was quite a community in regards to the fact that you were seeing the same faces, and I don't care whether you've done 1 summit or 10 summits. There's like a girl that I speak to now that only managed 1 summit, but you say only, that could have been her Everest. And she's one of this people in the population that put this block on that Penavan was unreachable. And I remember this one specific point in Penavan, there was this old guy, and I'd been up and down like 3 times, I think, and he was just getting to Windy Gap, and he was thinking about turning around and coming back down because he didn't think he could make it, and he had somebody with him, one of the Penavan volunteers, and I stopped and I said, listen, I said, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get one. I said, don't go back down because you'll forever regret not going to the top. I said, you've got like 600 metres. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. You can stop every 10 metres if you need to. You've got 24 hours. Get that one done. Well, a couple of reps later, I seen the volunteer that was with him. And I said, did he complete? And she hugged me. And she said, thank you so much. She said he just wanted to say thank you for spurring him on because he was going to turn round. He felt like he was failing because he'd only done one. And this is where the comparison comes in. It's like you can't compare your beginning to somebody's middle. Like you can't look at my journey and go, oh shit, I wish I was as good as him. I can't then look at somebody else's journey and go, oh, why and I'm not achieving that. So I think Penavan is a real tough challenge in the fact the way you manage your nutrition. But in regards to it being Penavan being hard, it's not. It's just that mental block that people put on the fact that they haven't done it before. And yeah, I think I'd done it in like 10 hours 42 was the finish time. And for me, the time was irrelevant. The fact that I nailed what I said I wanted to do, in fact, like going up and down, was the key factor. And I had a couple of mates come with me. One of them, Peanut. I said, right, I'm going to go out hard. I said, don't come with me for the first one. I said, come with me like when it gets like 3 or 4. But he was like, oh, no, I'll come with you. Well, he ended up doing 5 on his own and then just binning it. But I think he's going back this year to give the 10 a go.
Oh, fair play.
So it's are you going to do it this year or?
Not this year. Yeah. My training is purely focused on rope climbs this year.
Yeah, fair one. Yeah.
So
maybe rock climb Penavan.
That could be one of the little milestones, to be fair. Rope climb the height of Penavan. I say that as if I'm also not thinking of doing it anyway. Yeah. Yeah. So you never know. I might end up going because there's so many challenges out there.
Yeah.
And if it sparks my interest, I just forget about whatever else I'm training for, and I'm like, oh, I'll just go and do that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I've got that mindset from, to be honest, because like I look back to 2019. That's when something switched in me. Like I was always fairly fit.
Yeah.
I was into sports. Like I was a competitive free runner, doing quite well at that. And then I sort of came out of that. Then I got into like rock climbing and things like that.
Yeah.
But then 2019, I was like, I'm going to run an ultramarathon this year. And I'd signed up to like a few different events at the start of the year. So I did like a 5K round like Butte Park, I think it was. Then I did like a 10K in February, Cardiff Bay 10K. I did that, and then I just forgot about running for a while. Yeah. But I'd signed up to all these events, and then it got to, then I decided to join the fire service. So I was going through all my basic training to be a firefighter, and I realised that at the end of my 2-week basic training, there was, like, the Cardiff half marathon was the last Sunday.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to all the guys being like, oh, I've got a place for Cardiff half. Does anyone want it? Like, I'm not going to do it after this. And they were like, oh, no, we've already got places. Like, you should come and run it with us. We'll just do, like, an easy run, like, as a crew. And I was like, yeah, okay, it'll be good to do something together.
Yeah.
Like, as if 2 weeks of pushing yourself physically wasn't enough. We was like, yeah, we'll add on a half marathon at the end. And I remember, like, throughout the 2 weeks, I love telling this story. It's 9 to 5 course.
Yeah.
So you go there, you're doing 9 to 5. They give you this massive folder to learn because you get a written exam at the end.
Yeah.
So everyone's doing their 9 to 5 course. They go home, they're sitting down on the sofas. They're telling me like the next morning, like, oh, my wife cooked for me, did a little bit of studying. And then I was like, I had to go to work after that. So I was doing 9 to 5. Then I was coaching gymnastics straight from that until like 9 o'clock at night.
And then doing study.
Yeah, getting home at like 9:30, cooking myself. So I'm not eating till like gone 10.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I've got to study now. Then I'm studying, and then I'm back in the next day. And then weekends, they're like, oh, I completely collapse on the weekend. I'm like, weekends is my busiest time for coaching. I've still got to go in and coach.
Yeah.
So I was like coming in wrecked every day. I came out as like top of the class. I remember the instructors being like, you've absolutely like smashed this week.
Yeah.
We want to speed track you onto the next course because you've done so well. You did like so well on the written test, everything. And then I was like over the moon with that. And I was like, nothing could be better than running a half marathon with you guys right now. Like I would love that. And I turn up and I take a picture and I'm like, where is everyone? I can't find you. They're like, oh, we're at home. We're like 2 gone for this. And I was like, what?
No.
So I was the only one that turned up. And then I ran a 1:45.
After 2 weeks of hell.
Yeah.
No training.
No training. Like my training was a 5K and a 10K in January and February. And this was like October, I think.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, like I've done this.
Yeah.
And then I had 2 weeks off of doing anything. But just before I signed up to do the firefighting course, I saw a strongman competition. So I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I'll sign up to that. But then because I got into the firefighting stuff, I didn't train for it.
Yeah.
I had like one session with Gavin Bilton, who is now Britain's strongest man.
Yeah, I know
but
Gav.
he lives like down the road.
Yeah, I know Gav.
Great guy. I love Gav. So I did like one strongman session with him because he just used to do them in the gym on a Sunday. He was like, yeah, if you want to come down.
Yeah.
And he taught me how to carry a shield.
Yeah.
Wasn't in any of the events, but he was just like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to sign up for that strongman competition. I was like, I'm going to train with it. I'll meet up with Gav. Didn't do any of that. And I rocked up to the competition. And I smashed it. And I was like, my PB deadlift, the first event was a deadlift. My PB was a 180. And I'd lifted that like 2 weeks before the competition. And that was the starting weight for the deadlift. They were like, the starting weight's 180. So I was like, oh, right, okay. Went out, pulled the 180. And then they were like, right, next jump, 200. They were doing 20 kilo jump.
Christ.
And I was like, I've never touched anything above 180.
Yeah.
And I went up and I just pulled it. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is going on? And then we had like a tyre flip, a 300 kilo tyre flip. You had to do 5 of them for time, like I won that event. We had to do a loading event, which I won as well. I lost on the log press because I'd awful at overhead press.
Yeah.
And they said it was meant to be like an 80 kilo log, and I was like, I could probably do that, but everyone there was like, that feels like 100.
Yeah.
Like, I think they've done us here.
Yeah.
And I just could not get it up. But yeah, I was just winning these events, and I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Mad.
Like, this is insane. And then straight after that, I did my next firefighting course, which is the fire behaviour stuff.
Yeah.
So all the masks, all of that stuff. And that is not just physically hard, it was mentally hard. Going in, knowing that you've done a stint and you have to go back in.
Yeah. And
you just come out with that drained. But then a week after that was the ultra I'd signed up for. So then I was like, oh, right. I was so close to not doing it.
Yeah.
In between the half and the ultra, there was a marathon that I was like, I'm just not doing that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not going to do the ultra. I'm in the fire service now. Like, there's no need for me to do it. But then there was just something in my head that was like, you got to do it.
It's that chimp.
Yeah. And that year, just like, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, not really, I was fit, but I wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
To then doing like an ultra without training, really. And
Yeah. Strong man without training.
Strong man without training, a 145 half without training.
Yeah.
And I just got hooked then.
Yeah.
And that's where like sort of everything's come from.
Yeah.
I wish I'd capitalised on like YouTube and all of that back then, because all the guys that were doing similar stuff now were like famous, and I just missed the trick there.
I know. Yeah, it's it's always things. What's the word? When you look back and think, oh yeah, I wish I'd done that then, and it's like the best time to start is then, second best time's now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it really draws you in any fitness events. You become sort of encapsulated in that world, and you think, oh, what can I do next?
Yeah.
What's next? What can I do?
And the bugs just hit me, so
Yeah.
now I'm gonna be off climbing a rope 2,000 times.
Tendonitis City.
Yeah, but thankfully, I am gonna train this time.
Yeah. And you've got 8 months, which is ample.
Yeah, I've got a decent amount of time, and I've said, like, in my head, there's like a doubt of not being able to do it. Like, there's just not enough base fitness. I lost all of my fitness after 2020. I snapped my ankle in half.
Yeah.
Non-weight bearing for 6 months. And then I got into a really bad depression for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So, like, last year was me coming out of that and setting these challenges. So I'm starting to build that fitness back up, which is why I then signed up to another ultra and did the 50-mile barefoot. But there's that little niggling doubt of you're not going to do it.
Well, you wouldn't set a challenge if you could do it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a challenge. If you knew wholeheartedly that it was within your realm of capability, you wouldn't set the challenge, or you wouldn't even give any energy towards it. So let's say now you know you could run a half marathon. If you were to set the challenge of running a half marathon, you'd be like, whatever, I'll turn up a day and run it.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't put anything into it. The fact that it scares you shows that it's big enough, because you think, Jesus Christ, I can't do this, which then is going to make that drive even deeper to think, oh shit, there may be a chance I'll fail this, so I need to show up. I need to put the effort in. I need to actually work to see if I can. And I think those that set challenges that are achievable are massively underestimated in themselves and stuck in the comfort zone, which they shouldn't be.
Yeah. So on this topic then, what do you think has been your biggest sort of experience that you think back to where you found that mental resilience and has sort of like changed your outlook on what's achievable?
Good question. I think right from the offset, back in 2011, I ran from Spain to France. Now, this was on the back end of running the Comrades. I really didn't have any depth of experience in running when I'd done that. And like I said, I've always been army fit. So when I got posted to Catterick to train recruits, I was training for SAS selection. And the commander at the time, or my officer commanding OC, said to me, there's a race that we're looking at sending the team out from Spain to France. It's a 3-day event, and would you like to go? And like you, with this rope thing, I thought, running from Spain to France. I'm like, yeah, I'm a fit guy, but I'm thinking, fucking hell, there's no way I can run from Spain to France. And I played this battle with myself thinking, and this is where we all think, and it's like back then, it's so cliche to say, but like I was scared of making a fool of myself. I was always known as this fit guy training for SAS. What if I go out there and cream in? What if I go out there and actually like make myself look like a tit? I was so concerned about how I looked externally back then that that's not the case now, but like back then I was so worried about what other people thought about me that I didn't really take into consideration what I actually thought about myself and what I actually thought about what I could achieve. And I went out there, and by no means was I competing, but for me to get up every day, like the first day was an absolute grueler. It was like, it was only 25k, but it was like 5,000 meters of elevation. It was grueling. For me then to finish the staged run in Porto on the French border, I just sat there and there was this massive realisation of, shit, I can actually do anything or more than what I thought I could.
Yeah.
And from that on then, whenever something's come, like I've looked for races or challenges, I've always known that if you think you're done, you're not. Like, I spoke about this before. It's like, you've got to expect it to be shit, but it passes. Like, in life, you feel shit, but it passes. And with the ultra running, that's where it sort of really resonated with me back 13 years ago, that I was capable of way more than what I thought I was, and that nothing was unattainable. And I think you see all these Instagram influencers now, like David Goggins and Rich Roll and all them lot spouting all this. But it's true, like I found this inadvertently myself all those years ago, that if I actually put my mind to something, there ain't nothing stopping me from achieving it. And I think that's the biggest key learning from what I've got from the ultras.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Something that makes me think about, is something I've been thinking about a lot recently as well, to be honest, is I've been going back over the 12 labours that I've set myself.
Yeah.
And at first, when you're in one place and I was looking at them and I'm like, they all seem so hard and so unattainable. And then you start ticking them off.
Yeah.
And then now that I'm at a place, like I'm a year into my journey, I've completed 2 of the labours.
Yeah.
And I look at some of them, and this is partly from the people I've been speaking to on the podcast, calling me out on it.
Yeah.
And I look back at them, and yeah, the 2 that I've done, they were really hard for me at the time, so I'm not taking that away from myself. But if I were to go back and do them, I know they'd be easier for me.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to look at my other ones, and I was like, these aren't hard enough anymore.
Yeah, but something's only easy once you've done it, right?
Yeah.
Like, for you, walking 50 miles barefoot, it's only easy now that you've done it. It was never going to be that before.
Yeah.
So we can look back on things and go, yeah, I'd smash that now. Well, obviously you would, because you've been through the experience.
Yeah.
You know exactly how you're going to feel, where you're going to struggle. Whereas beforehand, you had none of that. You had none of that experience or knowledge of what was going to happen. So we can always look back and stuff and go, oh, yeah, I'd smash that now, that was easy. But then projecting forward, you may compare, so like your 2 labours you've done, you may look at those 2 and go, oh, now that I've done that, that one's going to be piss. That one's going to be easy. But with the mindset, yeah, you're going to smash it, but I would never look at it and go, oh, maybe I should change it because now it seems too easy and it doesn't seem relevant or it doesn't seem hard enough.
Yeah.
At this point where you set the challenges, they were massive for you. It's only because you grow in as a person individually that each challenge, and as you go further along, you could, if we were sat here now and we set out 12 labours for you, this one on the end was the toughest one you could ever imagine. By the time you'd got 7 through, you'd look at that and go, oh, it's piss. I need to make it harder.
Yeah.
Because of all this experience you've gained beforehand. So I think if we constantly move the goalpost will never stop.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So if you're looking at your 12 labours and going, oh, they look too easy now, it'll never stop. It'll be a fucking continuum.
What I don't want to happen, though, is I don't want to get to a place where I've set myself this boundary.
Yeah.
And then I reach it, and then I get comfortable there.
Yeah.
I always want to be like Callum was explaining this to me, Callum Stronach.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's the size of your circle. You need to make your circle bigger.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Andrew James. Do you know Andrew?
No.
He went from 24 stone to running an ultra
Yeah.
in 12 months.
Class.
Absolutely
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
So I sat down with him last week, and he was saying that he got to that place where he ran a half marathon. And like now he's like, oh, I can just go and run half marathons, so I'm gonna sign up to half marathons.
Yeah.
And like that was gonna be his thing. He's like, I've run an ultra, half marathons are easy, but like it's way better than where I was before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, don't take that away from yourself. Like
Yeah.
that is a massive achievement.
Yeah.
And then he was like, but from listening to your podcast,
Yeah.
like I know that I need to keep pushing. He's
Yeah.
like, I've gone from like physically sitting on a sofa to metaphorically sitting on the sofa. That's his comfort zone,
Yeah.
and he wants to keep it going.
Yeah. And inertly, that's what everybody does. It's like, if you haven't got something to chase, then what are you doing?
No.
It's like a lot of ultra runners you'll find, if they haven't got a race booked, they'll go stagnant and they'll fall into this pit. I've been there myself. Post race blues. You finish a big race, like probably when you finish your 12 labours. You finish your big race, you go into a hibernation mode where you're not really training for anything, so you don't feel purpose, so you don't feel motivation, and then you fall even deeper, and before you know it, you haven't run for 5-6 weeks. So I think, whilst it's difficult, and it's talk about contentness. Like, it's difficult to find contentness when we're always chasing something. But does that chase make you content? Like for me, I don't ever want to be comfortable. I don't ever want to be in a place where I can sit back and go, I'm happy with where I'm at. Now, I don't know why I'm like that, or where it comes from, or if everybody's like it. But whilst everybody talks about contentness and being happy, and I'm not sure that personally I can be content if I'm not always pushing my boundaries. What that gives me is a real sense of worth. So if I'm doing a challenge, once I've completed it, or whilst I'm in it, I feel content at the time, in the fact that I'm working towards something that's difficult. So I don't know why, about stopping and being content. I think as ultra runners or runners or people in general, we always need that goal to strive for, because a lot of people now, when back home, there's a circle of friends, like, or whatever friendship group you're in, they'll just be in this continuum of going to work, coming home, and never really setting boundaries for themselves, never really growing as a person, never really pushing or wanting more. And I don't know where this come from with me. Like, I come from a small village. The sick capital of the UK, it was called, because everybody was in the sick. Nobody wanted to better themselves, and I always found that really, really odd, in the fact that I was more driven to try and see how far I could go. And going back to the 12 labours, it's like, are you content in the fact that you're doing the labours, rather than the fact that stopping the labours, and once you stop the labours, you're like, oh yeah, I'm done now. And I don't think we can ever do that. I think we also always have to have these boundaries for ourselves to grow as a person. Not externally, but to prove to ourselves that, yeah, we can can achieve things, we can do this better, we can get better at that. So I think like this content and happiness is, for me, something that I find very difficult to settle with, in the fact that I could never sit and do nothing and not see how far I can push my limit.
Where do you think that drive's come from?
I don't really know. I think the fact that, and I've heard it over and over and over again through podcasts, is the fact that I was bullied at school. I had my back hit with a golf club, my skull fractured with a brick. And I never really fitted in regards to school. So I think I sort of distanced myself as a kid from everybody else. The moment the school bell went, I run home. It was like up a hill, like a mile and a half. So I distanced myself from school. So I never really wanted to be what everybody else was doing. So from that point, I think I wanted something different. It's like, I know this is going out and I know we're watching. Like, it's mad how two people can come from the same family and choose different paths. It's like my brother struggles with drugs. You need to get off him. But it's mad how we've both had the same upbringing, but we both have completely different outlooks on life. So I can't say where it comes from, but the only thing that's ringing true is the fact that my experiences through school, I think that's why I joined the army as well. I think to prove to myself and the big fingers up to the bullies that I was going to do something in my life and not just be stuck in that circle. And it's mad how two people can look at from the same family, go down completely different paths, despite having the same upbringing, despite having the same moral beliefs, the same strict guidelines, the same parenting. So I don't know, it's a real difficult one. It's like, I don't think anybody can really pinpoint a specific time or specific thing that made me the way I am. I think it's just a culmination of my circumstances growing up and joining the army and stuff.
It's more like dominoes laid out. Like one event leads to the next.
But you don't really think about it unless you're asked, right?
Yeah.
So it's something I've never really...
It's something you only sort of see in hindsight.
Yeah, something I've never really thought about conclusively. But it's a good question. It's something to real go away and think, why am I the way I am? Why am I so driven? Why am I so different, as I call it?
Yeah, because it is incredible, like what you've done, and then hearing that you've got a brother from the same background who's gone down a different path.
Yeah.
There was actually a study done on it on twins.
Yeah.
So it was like a longitudinal study, like over a long period of time, where they were following the paths of these twins, like loads of different twins from different circumstances, and seeing where they ended up. And the most extreme case they came across was one was turned into like a murderer, like a serial killer, and then the other was this successful business person.
Yeah.
And they asked them the same questions and like what's got you to this point?
Yeah.
And they had the same answers. It was like, well, I've grown up in this environment. I've done this. I've done this. Like,
so one's used it as a crutch.
Yeah.
So one's used it as, I had this as an upbringing. This was this. This was that. And then one on my side has gone, because I grew up like that, I made sure I did this and did that and wanted this and pushed for that. So it's, I don't know. I think you're born with it. In that respect, how do you classify somebody like that? You can't, can you? To pinpoint something for me would be really, really hard. And like there's no successful people really in my family, and I'm not saying in any how do you quantify success though, innit? It's like if you think you're successful, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, does it? In retrospect, well, how do you quantify success? In what aspects? Like, I quantify success, the fact that I've got a healthy family, my wife, amazing wife, my daughter's 16, and she's an absolute credit to me. We rent. I still class that as success. I've got a roof over my head. Got my own business. What other people looking in class as success could not be what you class as success, and I think it's where this gap. Like you think, oh, you're not successful. You haven't got millions in the bank. Do I need to have millions in the bank to be successful? So I think it's very difficult to quantify where I think if I'm successful or not, or if what I've achieved is any good, really.
Yeah, success is a mindset.
Yeah.
Is how and like this has come from, like, you probably saw my post yesterday about the little wins.
Yeah.
Like, all wins are the same, as James Smith was saying in the podcast I was listening to. And success is the same. Like, at first doing this podcast, I was like, I'm not successful with it because, like, I don't get many listeners.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, I really don't get that many listeners.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I don't get any money from it. This is all out of pocket.
Yeah.
And that sort of changed when I met Andrew, because I'd heard about him and Stu put me onto him.
Yeah.
And Stu had met him and heard his story, and he was like, "Oh, this is a really important story you need to hear." And I was like, "Yeah, okay. Like, I love stories.
Yeah.
That's what I'm leaning towards in the podcast." And then when he said that my podcast, listening to it, has pushed him to grow his circle bigger, that I felt so proud of that.
Yeah.
That was success.
Yeah.
The fact that I've had that impact on one person.
Yeah.
And I've seen that impact in person.
Yeah.
That feels better than being like, I've got 100 listeners or 1,000 or 1,000,000. That will never compare to someone being like,
actually being affected by the podcast and gone, do you know what? Yeah, it's changed my mindset, my philosophy, my outlook on life. And I think for that, you've just got to be thankful. And yeah, you've got to class that as success. And it doesn't matter about in regards to what everybody else is doing. Comparison is horrible when you look at other podcasts. And it's the stories that will resonate. And if somebody's to say to you, or like Grant drove down 4 hours from London, do you know what I mean? Everybody's travelling. If they didn't think that being on the podcast and sharing the story, I think for me interaction is key. I'm not asked about the views or the podcast. I think interaction and meeting new people in the running community, like from here, I guarantee that there'll always be a crossover now. Like we'll go run. There's a lad from just around the corner, Nathan Hutton.
okay,
What a runner! Now I've come across him on one of the Pegasus events. This guy's won the Gower 50 back end of last year. Did he win? Might have won or come second in Brecon to Cardiff, come second in the 100 miler in Centurion. And I think for me, it's the fact that making friends and making these connections, that's the key thing for me. And like, if somebody's inadvertently said to you, "Oh yeah, I've done this because of you," then it doesn't matter if you've only got fucking little views. You're doing something impactful. Yeah.
And with him, he didn't see any value in his story. Like, he's only just created an Instagram account. Yeah. The attention's never been on him because he's never won. And then he was saying on the podcast, he was saying, having people like you, people like Stu, turning around, and he's like looking at us as like these ultra runners and being like, wow, what they're doing is amazing. Like, they are beyond, like, he was literally comparing us to God in his eyes. He was like, you guys are so amazing.
Yeah.
And for then us to turn around and be like, no, what you're doing
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
And Stu told the story on the podcast about, and it was actually about Andrew saying about this guy turned up to one of his running events and
Yeah.
he was chatting with him, and the guy turned around and was like, I don't feel like I belong here. I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't earned it. And then they got to the top of this hill and Stu turned him around, was like, you're at the front of the pack. Like,
Yeah.
you've earned this more than anyone here.
Yeah.
And for him hearing that, and like at first when he just heard it from Stu, he thought, oh, he's just saying that to make me feel nice. And then he listened to the podcast and heard the story on the podcast and was like, that's me.
Yeah.
He was like, he genuinely meant that.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realise the impact they have.
No, and you're right. It's like that, going back to what we spoke about at the start, with like people not believing that they belong there because of the comparison against somebody else. It's like they're comparing their beginning to our middle, and that automatically put a block on it for Andrew. And he's going, oh, I could never achieve that because look at what these guys are achieving. But in doing so, we're massively poor as giving ourselves praise. Like, if we do something or achieve something, like you spoke about yesterday, small wins. Innately, we are terrible at giving ourselves praise, and I think listening there about Andrew is maybe now seeing that praise from external is going to engage a lot of motivation in himself to think, do you know what? I can do this. If other people are seeing it in me, I can actually do it. This is probably only a start for him, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. Seeing what he's like in person.
Yeah.
The thing I loved most about Andrew was that he was just such a loving person.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm so blessed to be able to do this, and I've got my family.
Yeah.
And like my kids are now like looking to start running because I am, whereas before they wouldn't want to do stuff because you know, Dad's sat on the sofa again, doesn't want to get up. Why should we?
Yeah.
And seeing that change like through his kids, and that drives him.
Yeah.
And it's coming from like that loving place. Like I know a lot of people, probably myself included, liked doing ultra events because you get to go through that dark place. Yeah. And then seeing it come from that sort of loving place. Yeah. It's really refreshing for me. Yeah. I know it might just be me and like in like a bit of an echo chamber, like follow David Goggins and all of that. And it's like you have to be in a dark place to be an ultra athlete.
Yeah, but how much
you don't
from like videos like this, it's like, how much motivation are you actually really getting? It's like sometimes it can affect you two ways. You could just sit there and listen to all these motivational videos, all these inspirational YouTubes, but if you're not taking action, then you're just wasting time. Yeah. Like, for this momentarily, you'll feel inspired and feel motivated and feel that you're going to do something. But unless you actually take steps to take action, what is this for? Yeah. It's like, I know they serve a purpose and I love them, I watch them all the time. But I also find myself not taking action. And like critically overthinking things and not taking action has been probably the reason that I haven't done many things. It's like I've set myself loads of challenges in the past, like run an hour every day for 100 days. I got like 40 odd days in, and I was just like, what's the point? And I was still watching all these motivational videos, still watching all the inspirational stuff, but just wasn't taking action. It wasn't crossing over. So whilst I think they serve a purpose, unless you're actually in the foreground going, I need to take steps and having a plan, because without a plan, you're on a journey to nowhere, right? It's like if you haven't got a plan to do things, like you've just said now with your thing, you've got this plan progression to increase slowly. If you didn't have that plan, you'd never get it. So how often does it cross over with people? It's like we watch all these motivational videos. How often does it cross over to actually people taking action? Because if you thought about it, if these motivational videos actually had the impact they were set out to have, how many people would be making these motivational videos because of they've taken action? It'd be fucking thousands.
Yeah.
The reality is less than 0.1% people actually convey it over. Yes, it's a good platform. It's amazing to see people do these things like David Goggins losing all that weight. But does it translate? Can you translate that to your life? Like Andrew is. He's like the 1%. Because 99% of people will just scroll past and go, yeah, okay, that's motivational. I've got my instant gratification for a few seconds. I feel motivated. 99% of people are just like, yeah, it'll be that 1% will go, yeah, I'm going to take action.
Yeah.
But it's smaller than people think.
I feel like more than inspiration, what people should be looking for is to be challenged. Not in the sense of, well, it'll go into physically challenging yourself or mentally challenging yourself. But I think people need to have that like verbal challenge that are against like what their current beliefs are or what they can do. Just being called out on like you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
I think more people need that. Like they don't need the you can do it. Like if you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything. 40% rule, all of that. Like it's true.
Yeah.
But like you're saying with the action, it's like watching that you get that little spark, and then it just dies off. But until you're like challenged to the point where you have to constantly think about it and be like, maybe I'm not. Like you're saying, you're gonna probably go away now and think, why am I like this?
Yeah.
Like you've had that sort of belief system challenged in you.
Yeah.
And now you're gonna go and think about it. Like I think there needs to be more things like that out there.
Yeah.
I think that would create more of a change in someone.
Yeah, definitely. But then that creates self-worth then, doesn't it, as well? It's like if you are that 1% and you actually take a look at yourself and you actually challenge yourself, when you complete that challenge, you become a better person instantly. The self-belief that you grow from completing your first ultra or running a half marathon without training in 1:45 or competing in a bodybuilding competition. Ultimately, at the end of that process, you've developed as a person and you'll never be the person that you were before because of you've put yourself through that. And all these little baby steps, I think, challenges, processes, make you the person, a way better person than what you were. So you're not the same person that you were 6 months ago. I'm not the same person that I was 6 months ago. And this can go on the other side of the spectrum as well. If we are not doing these challenges, what does that do? It makes us feel shit about ourselves. It makes us feel less about ourselves. Slowly and slowly, you're going to come down. And you're going to have so little self-worth that these challenges are going to seem further away from you. So when you set yourself a challenge, it's going to be way harder. So I think you constantly need to find that plateau of little wins, like you said yesterday. Find these little wins and then tick it off and go, yeah, I'm self-worth better, I'm feeling better myself, and you're all constantly progressing. Because if you don't and you stop, I know, because I've fucking been there many times, you're just going to go, and then the challenges just become a bigger thing to you than what they actually should be.
Yeah. I think the other side of that is you have to finish it. Like, by finishing something, it doesn't have to be big. Set something achievable that you can finish first as a step to your goal. But by doing something and finishing it, like you're saying, like if you don't finish something, instantly downhill.
Yeah.
But by finishing something, it's not just that step up to I've done this goal, right, move on to the next. that belief grows
Yeah.
on like more is achievable. Like you were saying with my 12 labours, I've done those two, and now I'm pushing the goalposts again.
Yeah.
And yeah, without finishing those two, if I'd like went for one and not done it, which this actually happened. The first one I went to do,
Three Peaks.
yeah, the Welsh 3000s.
Yeah,
that was
that's it. Yeah.
And I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
And then looking at my 50-mile barefoot walk, I was like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And then looking back at doing the Welsh 3000s again and being like, I don't know if I can do that. If
Yeah.
I'd just finished it the first time, that belief would have been there.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't in that place to finish it. I
Yeah.
know that looking back now. And I'm like, that could have been the end of it. I wasn't really posting about my 12 labours before failing that. I could have just been like, you know what, I'm going to knock this on the head here. Like,
And
keep it quiet and carry on with my life and not go for things. Maybe I'm just not fit enough to do this. I'm glad I didn't have that mindset. And I was like, I had it for maybe like a month afterwards. And then I was like, no, you know what? Like, I just got to train more.
Yeah.
And I went back to it. And I'm so glad I went back to it. But I think I needed that first failure to realise that.
Yeah.
But it's also, once you do then finish something, it's a massive step forward.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, what is next for you?
Well,
probably let your back recover.
Yeah, so stupidly, I broke my back in a bike accident last week. I broke my T3 and T4, and the doctor said 6 weeks healing, but no running for 3 months. Now, I've signed up for Epona 100, which is in June, and that's obviously run by Reese. If we go forward 6 weeks, you're probably talking towards the end of February, and then another 6 weeks from that is the end of March. So then I've got April and May to try and get some miles in for a 100 miler. So I don't know what the process is going to be yet in regards to the 100 miler. These next coming weeks we'll sort of lay out if I do the 100 mile. I spoke to Reese yesterday, and he said, look, we can always push it back to next year. But then what that does is doesn't give me anything for this year. And what do we need? We need challenges. So I've still got on the back burner that I want to do a marathon in every city in the UK. And 2 years ago, I was signed up to, or 3 years ago, 2021, I was signed up to Dragon's Back. And that's when I found out that I had this brain condition. So I'd started training. So that could be a possibility next year. I've also been watching The Spine, and they're laying in bed, and I'm like, ooh, The Spine, 268 miles. I'm like, innately, I'm like, oh, that could be something I signed up to. So this is like 2 o'clock this morning. Got my phone out. How much is the Spine race? It's like £1,195. I was like, my wife's sleeping. I was like, oh. So I don't know. That could be up there. I do fancy the Arc of Attrition as well, which is January next year. But ultimately for me, it's going to be the recovery at the moment.
These challenges are contagious, aren't they?
Yeah, they're horrible. Like you're just constantly looking at other ones and going, oh, what can I do? But yeah, I think the next few months are going to be vital in regards to my recovery. And I'm not one for guidelines. I will say that. So the doctors have said 3 months before I could run. But they also told me when I had my ACL reconstruction that it would be 18 months before I was running again. And this was 2018. Had my surgery 1st of April. And I ran Cardiff half in 1:26 6 months later. So guidelines for me are just guidelines. So we'll play that by ear. I will when I had the surgery and just in general, I'm so dedicated and so by the book in regards to my own feelings and how I'm feeling from the outside looking in. And I had this a lot when I went through ACL reconstruction last time. You're doing too much too soon. You shouldn't be squatting that much. You shouldn't be doing this. Fuck off. I know my body. So it's going to be more of that this time. I guarantee people will see stuff on social media with me, with my broken back, like I'm now 6 days. 6 days ago, I broke 2 bones in my back. People will see things and think, oh, he shouldn't be doing that. He shouldn't be doing this. I'll do it my way.
Yeah.
And my way only. So what that pans out to be, if I get to... My ultimate goal is to do the 100 miler, right? I do want to do it. But I know I won't be able to do it on less than 12 weeks. So if we go back 12 weeks from June 22nd, we're probably looking at like sometime in March, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so that is it. If I got 12 weeks, I'll be on our start line of the 100 miler. If not, then I'll have to find something else, but I don't know what it is. Like I said, I've already had this idea of running a marathon in every city in the UK. And that's more of a family-based thing. So I want my daughter and wife to travel with me to these cities. So like fly to Liverpool, I run a marathon, they go and do shopping for 4 hours, and then we spend a day in Liverpool. And that's sort of my plan, is like to get my daughter to see every city in the UK whilst I run a marathon. It's not going to be weekly because obviously the cost is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But in the next coming years, that will be ticked off my bucket list in regards to doing that. And then long term, I'd like to run Welsh Coastal Path as a start.
An FKT?
Just to do it for the experience of doing it.
Okay.
Initially, I think I've got the attributes for the time, as in the FKT, but that's not my biggest driving factor.
Yeah.
I think after watching The Lighthouse and Reese going for the FKT, I think the whole experience of being consumed by the whole event is probably why I'll do it. If it's an FKT, it's an FKT. I'm not really results orientated that way. Then Britain, it's obvious. That's another major stepping stone. Is joggle. Before I broke my back, I messaged Grant. So me and Grant are, and this is a spoiler.
He's messaged me about this already, so I know.
So me and Grant are going to run Luxembourg.
I've told him I'm keen, so if you want to,
yes,
number 3.
Yes. So this is the thing. I was thinking. I was watching. I've got a lot of time because of my back and what have you. And Christmas has been quiet, so I was watching this guy, and he cycled Luxembourg on a Barbie bike, right, like 50k, and I thought that could be a cool idea to run the country in one go. And if we can get as many people, because I've already priced for it, it's like £104 for the flights, £29 for a hostel, so it's like pennies. It's like you couldn't even go to Treco Bay in Porthcawl for 2 days. It's like 150 quid, and you've got 2 days in Luxembourg. You run the country, and if we can get like a team of people, I don't care about, like I said to Grant, he said, are we going for it? I said, no. I said, like, results driven, no. Experience and fun. So if we can get 10, 15 people, that'd be class. And then further down the field, UTMB has always been a set target, but UTMB to compete.
Yeah.
So
that one is results based.
So that is results based, and that's just egotistically driven. The fact that when I go to UTMB, like all these other ones, like the Welsh Coastal Path is purely just for the experience and the fact that I can say that I've run my coastal line. FKT is irrelevant. Joggle is just the fact that so many people have done it, and I think it'll be a cool thing to do and experience.
What about the joggle with 3 peaks included?
Yeah, so Reese has done that, and that'd probably be something that I do as well. And I don't care about the FKT side of things. It's, again, with the mountains, I don't see them as challenges per se. But the reason that I want to make UTMB the figure is probably its legacy and who I will be remembered for, in regards to the fact that when we're gone, everybody, like, when I pass, our memories are so often gone in regards to, unless we make a massive statement. So for me, I want something that my daughter can talk about to her grandkids and they can pass on. So I know it's a small niche world they'll have to run in. So when I go to UTMB, I'm nearly 40 now, but I want it to be results based. I want to be top 10 in the UTMB, and that's a big shout. That's a massive shout.
Yeah.
But I do want to be top 10. So probably when I'm, 45 maybe, past it. But yeah, that's the ultimate. So that's the biggest one, is that UTMB. The rest are something that I'm going to work towards. The 76 marathons is just there's no time frame on that. It'll be over the coming years.
Yeah.
But let's get this back sorted first.
Yeah.
Get this back sorted and then see if I'm on the line of Epona, because that course is absolutely stunning. The 100 mile of Epona is absolutely beautiful. And if I can't, I don't want, and I know what I'm like, and you're probably like it too, if I get like 8 weeks, I'm like, I'll give it a go. But I don't want to put myself in a situation where I could hurt myself.
Yeah.
Even more than what I should. So if my back's not fully healed and I haven't got enough training, then I don't feel any pressure to be on the start line.
Yeah.
So it's focusing on recovery now, focusing on the gym, strength work, cycling. I'm not going to run for 8 weeks. I will take that heed, but I'm not waiting 3 months. 8 weeks will be the key, I think, in regards to the recovery.
Yeah.
Focus on the strength, and we'll go from there. So what's next for you, apart from the rope climbs?
Finishing this 496.
Yeah.
There's been a few dicey moments where I've just been like, I could just not do it today. Like Saturday was one for me.
Yeah.
I was coaching from 8:30 till 5, and then we had an awards evening from 6. I ended up getting back at like midnight. So then I was like, the only way I'm gonna fit in, I think it was 14k that day. I want to say.
Yeah.
It was 13. 13. So the only way I'm gonna fit in that 13k, I was like, I could try and squeeze it into that hour in between.
Yeah.
And be a bit late to the awards evening. And then just like the night before, it got to like 11:30 when I was at home, and I was like, I'm gonna have to get up really early, aren't I?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll get up really early. I'll do as much as I can before work.
Yeah.
And then I'll do
Squeeze
the rest
in
that hour. And I got up I woke up at 6 and I lay in bed for half hour being like, I'm not getting up today. I'm just not doing it.
I just run fast in the hour.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. And then at 6:30, I just got out of bed and I'm like, I gotta go. Did the whole 13k in one. And I was like, that relieves so much pressure from me now. But in that moment, I was like, I'm not getting out of bed. And I did, like, I was doing laps, so I knew that if I wanted to stop, I was by here. So then I could just come straight back in. And after the second lap, I think I was 4k in, I was wearing a jacket and I was getting too hot. So I was like, I'm going to chuck the jacket in the front. Yeah. I chucked it in and I looked up to, like, the light was on and
Yeah.
it was warm inside, and I was like, oh, I could just call it here, and I was like, no, get back out.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Now, I've had this before, right? Now, this 496 challenge is heavily publicized on social media, yeah? If you had made a commitment on your social media, the fact that you're posting reels and stories every day, that you're doing this 496, Saturday, you hadn't posted at all on Instagram, right? There wasn't a thing. Would you have got out of bed?
I genuinely think I would.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that the social side of things adds an added
It's an
pressure?
added pressure, 100%. And I thinking back to even just last year, like I think that's one of the reasons why I then committed to doing the 12 labours last year, because I tried the Welsh 3000s the year before, and I wasn't posting about it or anything. I was just going to do it. But then I think last year when I was like, the way I'm going to get over this is by telling everyone I'm doing it and having that pressure of doing it. I think it is super important, but personally I think I'm beyond that bit now, where it's just so internal of like, I've said to myself I'm going to do it. Yeah. I think it's super important to start off saying, I'm going to do this because I've told other people I've done it, that I'm going to do it. But now I'm at that point where all of that external motivation is sort of seeped in and like sort of filtered in to, I've told myself I'm going to do it, so I'm not going to let myself down.
Yeah. It's like the affirmations, and you see people talking about affirmations and the fact that if you speak something, then you're more likely to work towards that, rather than if you don't say anything and you've set the goal in yourself and not told anyone, then you're more likely, not saying everybody does, but to take the easy route. Like, the easy route is always the most preferred option, especially if you haven't vocalized the fact that you're doing a challenge. Yeah. If you think to yourself, I'm going to set a challenge, I'm going to run this, but don't tell anyone. If you take that easy option, who knows? Yeah. Like, who knows the fact that you've just taken the wimp route? It's one of these things. It's like, that killed me. I was in the hospital and I was hoping that it was bad whiplash, right? So I was sat in A&E Thursday. I'd rid back, so I had a bike accident. I'd rode home about an hour, a bit stiff, got to the hospital, and I was waiting for I had a trauma scan, I was waiting for the results. And I went outside and I was like, right, I'm just going to run up and down the car park now, see if I can get this, see if when I can go home, I can get this 11k in. Right? So I start running up the car park, right, and I just feel like this pressure towards the centre of my back, and it's like sort of, you feel like something's bouncing. I stop outside the door. I was like, oh, I'm not sure I can manage 11k like that. I was like, oh, this is going to be rough. And then when I sat down, she was like, yes, Lee, you have broke your back into places. I was like, I'm not going to tell her, I was just running around the car park. But because I'd spoke it, I didn't want to, and I pushed it out. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to. Yeah. I didn't want that. I saw it added that extra pressure. So I thought, I have to try to see if I can run. And I told my missus when I went home, shit, you're a fucking idiot. Running around the car park with a broken back.
That pressure is there. It's a very real pressure. Yeah. And it can make you do some stupid things. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you've listened to the doctors and taken some time off running. As much as I wanted to do that 17k with you today.
Have you done it yet? Oh no.
I haven't done it yet, no. Because like I'm doing 2 jobs and running this podcast and trying to do a running challenge. It is so much, and today's like my only full day off work. Yeah. So I like looking at my Whoop stats. I was like, I need to sleep in today.
Yeah.
So like when you messaged me,
Yeah.
I saw that message. I was like, I should probably get out of bed.
I just woke you up.
I was up, but
Yeah.
well, I was awake.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Definitely wasn't up.
Yeah.
And it was one of those days where it's like, you know, when you wake up and you really need the toilet, but you don't want to get out of bed. Today was one of those days for me. So like
just holding it and getting worse and worse.
yeah,
Brilliant.
but yeah, I'm gonna get the run in today.
We got another podcast tonight.
Yeah, got a podcast with Terry Rosserman, from Team Rockman.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Should get it in before that.
Yeah, before that.
Sorted.
So that'll be my lunch break today. I've got a podcast to edit today, ready for Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah, got a lot to do.
Busy man.
Busy man.
It's good.
Right, something I really want to start with this podcast is I want to set the listeners a weekly challenge from the guests. So something that they can go out and do at some point this week, that's going to push themselves and get them sort of aligned with the adventure athlete lifestyle. So what would you set them this week?
So, knowing the audience is obviously going to be mainly people in the endurance and running game, or if people are listening and they're not into it. This week's challenge is to visit a trig point. So whether you walk or run, try and find a trig point somewhere in your area.
I like that.
Something different, but I see that from the Pegasus community, there's a girl that actually does trig points, so that's her all Instagram, and I think it's quite cool because the places it takes her. And if you're not into fitness, and try and walk, find a trig point and actually spend an hour or so, or however long it takes you, on the trails, to get to that trig point. We've got weather now, so the views will be amazing as well.
Yeah. Something I want to sort of add to that is don't find an easy trig point. Don't find one.
Just pull up next to the motorway.
Caerphilly Mountain's just there. You can drive to the top and it's a 5-minute walk. That's not counting.
That's cheating.
Use Caerphilly Mountain. Don't get me wrong. I love Caerphilly Mountain. Great views. I love the fact I live at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Start from town. Train station is the latest I'll let you start for Caerphilly Mountain. Anything higher than the train station and I'm not counting that.
Maybe I didn't think going through, because if it's a trig point right where you can drive, not one you can drive to, one you have to walk to.
Yeah, it has to be a walk. Even if you can drive to it, walk.
Yeah.
Get outside.
Yeah.
But
get active.
I love that challenge. That is perfect. Exactly what I'm looking for. If people want to follow along with your journey, see which one of the many races you decide to sign up for, where can they find you?
So I'm on YouTube, and that's going to be my biggest push for the foreseeable, and that's Lee Runs Ultras. And on Instagram I've got 2 accounts. Again, this was because we spoke about the YouTube and stuff. I was seeing which one communicated best with algorithms and stuff. So on Instagram it's Pursue Purpose _ or Lee Runs Ultras, and on YouTube you'll find running content, ultra running, not so much now, but my recovery back from my broken back, and whatever I get up to next.
Are you going to be posting a video about your 496 attempt?
I will, yeah.
Because I knew you was making a video about it, but I wasn't sure if you was going to finish it now that...
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a bit bittersweet, isn't it? Like, I've run 10k. But yeah, I will do a video explaining like because like you just said, on the thought process you go through, you just think, do you know what? Maybe I just pull it. Like there was one, I think it was one of the days I messaged you and I was like, I did not want to get out today, and it was like getting later and later and later, and I I've watched this YouTube where you just count down from 5 to 1. I sat in the set. He was like, right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Up, right, we're out the door now. But yeah, I have made some content on it, and I will explain. I am going to do it again. I will do it again once I'm better.
I'm thinking of doing it again,
but in miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came from Bob Thomas.
Yeah.
Do you know Bob?
Yeah. So with Bob, the last race, we run pretty much the 50 miler. We run.
Oh yeah, he did the slam as well, didn't he?
60 odd K. He didn't do the slam.
I thought he did.
He did, not my one.
Oh, okay.
He done the one before. So for the 50 miles, we spent 6 or 7 hours together. And I watched that one with Bob, where he said it doesn't count in kilometers. But yeah.
Was that in the group chat that you were in?
No, this was with you. He said about doing it in miles.
Yeah. That was the first. I knew I was going to get that message. That was the first message I got off anyone about doing the 496. Was him being like, "Why are you not doing it in miles?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck's
But
sake."
the thing is if you haven't, like, the reason I chose kilometers was the fact that I hadn't run for a few months because of my brain condition, and I knew that I was going to be incapable of completing it. It wasn't an if, but, or maybe.
Yeah.
I hadn't had the base fitness. It's all right, all well and good setting yourself that challenge, but the reason I said kilometres is that then gives you the base to do miles.
Yeah. Mine was just time.
Yeah.
Like, I knew...
Well, yeah, that also, like, when it comes to the end of the month, you're like 30, 28, 29, 30 miles. It's like, where are you going to pinch another 7 hours?
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to 31 miles, where you at that stage, you've done a cumulative amount of days, so you're going to be sore. Where are you going to pinch 7 hours in the day to fit in a 31 mile run? It's invisible.
It was like this month, struggling to fit in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, so that's probably your biggest contributing factor. The challenge to you is time based. Yeah. It's not mindset or fitness or motivation. It's how can I fit in 25k around 2 jobs, podcast, and managing my life. Yeah,
and that, like, I've only just started this second job this month as well. So if I'd done it in December, for example, where I was only coaching, so I was only working in the evenings, I would have been fine with that. I would have been like, miles, like I'll do miles. Like, I know I'm not fit enough to do miles either, so I probably would have flopped. But like, I would have signed up to do miles, but time is just, it's a hard one. Yeah. But I've told him at some point, hopefully later this year. Yeah. Aye, and when we do it, Bob, you have to do it with us. Tough shit. Yes. Tough shit. Come on, Bob. Calling you out, Bob. Oh, he's going to love that. Oh. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you like this episode, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Spotify and YouTube and share our content around. It helps more than you can ever imagine. Now, if there's a person in particular that you want to hear from or a topic that you want us to cover, just drop us a message, let us know in our DMs, and we'll make sure we try and reach out to the relevant people to cover that topic for you. We're always trying to make content that you guys want to listen to. We have just dropped our website. It's adventureathletes.co.uk, and you can go on there to find out the range of different services we offer. So we have sports massage, different training programs, and personal training, both online and in person, that you can sign up to on the website. So make sure you go and check us out at adventureathletes.co.uk.